Hi all, welcome back to my channel. I mentioned in a previous video that I've been following the penalty phase trial for the Parkland shooter who shot and killed 17 people and injured 17 others in a planned attack on Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida on Valentine's Day in 2018. And for those of you who have also been following, you know how heartbreaking it's been to watch. But if you haven't had the time to watch the trial, but you have wanted to keep up on the case, I thought I'd talk about it in this video because I haven't covered it at all. I know it was all over the news after it happened, but we've had some time to forget some things, and I've learned some new details that I never knew before, or maybe forgot, during this trial. But more important than any of the details about the shooter, this trial has given the families of the victims the chance to share their precious memories of their loved ones with the world. It has given them the chance to share their loved ones' hopes and dreams, and it has given them the chance to stare down evil and let the shooter know how sad and angry they are, and how empty and broken they feel after he chose to destroy their families forever. It's been heartbreaking to listen to all their stories, and I can only imagine how hard it is for them to go back to that horrific day in their minds to remember their loved ones, their children, for the last time. For one of the first times watching a trial that I'm interested in, I'm glad I'm not on that jury. Not because I wouldn't want to give the shooter what I think he deserves, but because the parents, the families of the victims are in the courtroom, and it's tearing them apart to relive this nightmare. And it would tear me up too, seeing them go through it. How one of the defense attorneys representing the shooter couldn't even contain her tears while listening to the parents talk about their incredible losses. So if she couldn't do it, then I couldn't be expected to either. But as hard as it's been to hear, and as hard as it's been for the victims' parents and families to talk about, it has been necessary so the jury can understand the immeasurable impact the shooter's actions had on so many lives that day. Because the shooter is on trial for his life, ironically, and the jury is tasked with deciding whether he lives the rest of his life in prison or dies for what he's done. So, he's fighting for his life, much like his many victims also did on that tragic Valentine's Day. So the jury has listened to the cries of the families. They were shown a 15-minute long video of the shooting as it was captured on 13 separate surveillance cameras inside the school, and next, they will be viewing the crime scene in the building where the massacre occurred on August 4th. According to what was discussed in court and news reports that I've listened to, the building where it took place has been preserved in the near same condition it was left in after the shooting was investigated back in 2018 for the purpose of this trial. Of course, it's been guarded, as the judge already visited the site prior to taking the jurors there, and she said she had to present identification to enter and asked the sheriff's department to ease the restricted access to allow the jury in. But apparently it was left as untouched as possible, and the prosecution wants the jury to see it. Because listening to stories and watching the video helps them to understand, but placing them there, now they're going to feel it. They're going to see the bullet holes. They're going to see the blood. They're going to see all the places the shooter hid to ambush his victims. And they're going to stand in the places the victims tried to hide and in the places they were left dying on the floor. It's going to be a hard day. The judge said the jury will be escorted through the school by the sheriff's department, but they are not to talk and will not be spoken to. Nothing will be pointed out or explained to them at the scene, leaving them with the video they watched left in their minds to guide them. From the first video in the stairwell, where a student on his way to the bathroom witnessed the shooter loading his gun and was told he'd better get out because it was going to get bad, to the end, when the shooting finally ceased and the shooter dropped his weapon and exited the school to blend in with the other evacuated students. They're going to experience it all. The judge said she wants any and every area in that building that had anything to do with the shooting on that day accessible to the jurors. But in order to make all that happen, the court had to also allow the shooter the opportunity to return to the scene, under the watch of guards, of course. An offer the defense declined, wisely, as they thought it would impact the jurors negatively to place him back at the scene along with them as they were viewing the damage and recreating what they saw on the video in their minds. I couldn't even imagine walking through the scene with the shooter present. Unreal. And of course, the defense argued that showing the jury the video of the tragedy should have been enough, and they objected to the jury going to view the crime scene. Because they're trying to save the shooter from receiving the death penalty, and they know how impactful physically walking through the scene will be for jurors. They will be guided floor by floor through all 3 floors of the building and the classrooms that were shot into and where victims were found, and they will be left open for jurors to enter. They will see the first floor, where the shooter found his first victims, Luke Hoyer and Martin Duque, as they ran through the hallway to the safety of their classroom, only to find the door locked. They'll see where he found his next victim, 14-year-old Gina Montalto, nearby, studying out in the hallway. They'll see where he gunned down Aaron Feiss, a football coach who ran into the school to stop him after he was alerted by the student in the stairwell that there was a gunman in the school. They will see where he ended the lives of 18-year-old Meadow Pollock, 14-year-old Carol Loughran, and 15-year-old Peter Wang as they ran for cover, and they will see where 14-year-old Jamie Gutenberg died in the school stairwell. And if they enter the classrooms, they will see where the shooter shot through the door and ended the lives of 14-year-old Alex Schachter, 14-year-olds Elena Petty and Alyssa Aladeff. And just across the hall from them, 17-year-old Nick Dworet. They'll see the classroom of Scott Beagle, the geography teacher who was shot and killed after opening his classroom door for students to run in and hide. They will see where athletic director Chris Dixon lost his life trying to disarm the shooter, where 17-year-old Joaquin Oliver was gunned down in the hallway while trying to escape, where 17-year-old Elena Ramsey was killed while shielding her friend from gunfire in her social studies classroom, and where 16-year-old Carmen Shantrap's life was brutally cut short while studying in her AP psychology class just 1 week before her 17th birthday. They will also see where the 17 other victims that the gunman tried to kill were hiding, trying to escape, and trying to run for their lives. They will see it all, up close and personal, and there's no escaping the overwhelming feelings that are going to come with that. As I've been watching this trial, I've learned that the shooter recorded videos on his phone saying that he wanted to be the next school shooter. I've also learned that police found texts on his phone just prior to the shooting showing a conversation where he was being rejected by a girl that he supposedly loved, and he was told to leave her alone. I didn't know that. And I've also learned that he made his way to the McDonald's close to the school, sat down next to a student he didn't know there, and asked the boy for a ride home. The boy didn't know he was the shooter at the time, and he didn't know that he had shot and attempted to kill that boy's sister just moments before. I wasn't aware of the extensive planning the shooter put into achieving his goal, and I didn't know that he attacked and tried to disable a guard in prison with his own taser. I may not have known these things, or I may have forgotten them over time, but what I do know is that watching him fight for his own life, after he took so much pleasure and brutally ending the lives of his victims makes me sick. If you ask me, the jury should be made up of the parents of the victims, their parents, and their loved ones. They should be the ones to decide his fate. Why? Because he decided theirs. Then the court wouldn't need to take the jury to the crime scene to let them live it for themselves, to let them feel it. Because the victims' families already do, every single day. They can't escape it. And no, sentencing him to death will not bring their loved ones back. But he doesn't want to die. He pled guilty on each and every charge in an effort to spare his own life after taking the lives of so many others. He was so big and bad then. Now he's just a coward, begging for them to spare him, now after he found no mercy within his own self to spare them. Whether they want him to die or not, each family is serving their own life sentence for a crime they did not commit. They deserve justice any way they want it. I hope the jurors will get any support they need, mentally and emotionally, after this trial is over. They've seen more than a human should ever have to, and it's not over for them yet. The trial is expected to last for 4 months. What they've seen and will see will never leave them, and I hope they'll receive any mental and emotional support they may need to pick up where their lives left off. They'll never be the same after this trial. So you can add them to the long list of the shooter's victims whose lives will be forever altered by an extremely disturbed 19-year-old monster who one day decided it was time to play God. I pray the families get the justice they so incredibly deserve. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen. I dedicate this video in honor of the beautiful lives taken on that horrific day, and to all those who survived and are still trying to get justice. Take care, stay safe out there, and I'll see you on my next video.